Bom dia, bem-vindos a esta sessão. Chamo-me António Sarmento, vou ser o moderador da sessão. E a sessão vai começar com uma pequena apresentação do Duarte Brito, que nos vem falar sobre um projeto do SATCAN que ele esteve envolvido. Portanto, eu vou-lhe dar a palavra para uma breve intervenção. Duarte, queres começar?
Good morning. I'm Duarte Brito, part of the GSAT team. This year's CANSAT team from my school, Colégio Guadalupe. So GSAT is CANSAT is a competition where the students need to make a team and then make a project. Then they need to build and actually put in practice, where you build a small satellite inside the volume of regular soda can. And this has some requirements, like, for example, you need to measure the temperature and the pressure, and then transmit it at least once per second during a descent of about 1 kilometer. But the part where this project really shines is the secondary mission, where the creativity of the students is able to take over, and they design a project for themselves. They choose something that they want to measure and something that they're worried about. So this year, our secondary mission was about the thin film sensors, which is an innovative technology that Nova University has been developing, where you essentially print a sensor in some kind of fabric or non-conductive surface. And that's really something that we think can revolutionize our lives and change the way we do many things. Just imagine having a temperature sensor in your clothes to measure you when you're doing all kinds of things, and then saving that information so that you can study yourself and you can have, for example, medical purposes or many things like in astronomy, the astronaut suits, all these kind of things. And this project really opens the mind for the students to the active discussions in the society about all of these important questions, because this secondary mission appeals to their creativity. So they need to try to solve or propose solutions to the everyday problems that we have. For example, we have secondary missions about the microplastics, we have secondary missions about the climate change, about measuring the climate patterns, and even though not everyone has a secondary mission about these questions, then we end up sharing all the things, and then irrevocably every single student that takes a part in this competition becomes a more active student and a more active citizen, more worried about these questions that affect our daily lives. And that is, I think, a really good introduction to this meeting, because we are going to talk about these important questions that worry us, and the Atlantic, and all these kind of things that this competition also works on improving. Thank you.
Antes de dar as palavras aos nossos membros do painel, queria dizer 2 ou 3 palavras. Eu pertenço a uma instituição chamada WAVEC, que é um centro de engenharia e de investigação para a área das energias renováveis marinhas e que agora tem vindo a trabalhar também noutros domínios mais ligados a problemas e tecnologias oceânicas. Mas no ano passado, desde de novembro de 2017 até janeiro de 2019, tive o prazer de implementar o Air Center. Portanto, esta é uma sessão que me diz muito, e voltar a este ambiente do Air Center, tem um sentido especial para mim. Foram tempos muito desafiantes, mas muito interessantes. E eu gostava de dar uma palavra sobre a minha visão, ou pelo menos algum aspecto, relativamente ao Air Center, que não foi focado ainda há pouco pelo seu secretário de Estado das Comunidades Portuguesas. Ele explicou bem o que é que se pretende com o Air Center, mas eu queria chamar a atenção para um aspecto que, por vezes, é uma observação muito pessoal, mas eu penso que é real e que gostava de partilhar convosco. Eu faço uma leitura de que o tecido de investigação português é já relativamente forte e que tem uma capacidade grande de participar praticamente em todas as iniciativas de ciência e tecnologia que existem a nível europeu e até internacional. Portanto, o desafio de Portugal, eu creio que não é, e as limitações não estão tanto na participação. Mas se nós pensarmos em quantas áreas e com que intensidade é que nós lideramos, aí provavelmente encontramos muito mais fraqueza. Nós temos pouca capacidade de contribuir para a liderança. E a liderança faz-se através de instrumentos. E eu penso que o Air Center é um instrumento de liderança para Portugal. Não quer dizer que sejamos os únicos a contribuir para a liderança, mas é seguramente um instrumento de liderança e nós precisamos de ter instrumentos de liderança. E se há uma área em que nós temos interesse e eventualmente vocação para liderar, é tudo aquilo que tem a ver com o oceano, em particular com o oceano, enfim, meridional e sul, e também não só na dimensão do sistema Oceano Atlântico, portanto, na dimensão da ciência envolvida e também no desenvolvimento de conhecimento e no desenvolvimento das oportunidades de negócio, mas também em termos geográficos, em termos políticos. Portanto, era só esta breve nota que eu queria deixar. Olhem para o Air Center também como um instrumento de liderança em que nós possamos ter uma forma de desenvolver os nossos interesses estratégicos, naturalmente, em articulação com todos os outros parceiros. E dito isto, passava a palavra para o nosso primeiro moderador. Eu tenho que ver aqui quem é que é o nosso primeiro moderador, porque não sei de cor. É a Sofia Cordeiro. A Sofia é a responsável, enfim, do programa Oceano da Fundação de Ciência e Tecnologia e a coordenadora do projeto Anchor, que é o projeto de implementação do Acordo de Belém a nível europeu. Portanto, Sofia, dou-lhe a palavra. Obrigado.
Antes de mais, bom dia a todos. Acho que tem a cor um bocadinho mais baixo. So, bom dia a todos. Good morning to all. My presentation will be in English. And it has Professor Sarmento mentioned about the role of the Ocean Program at FCT in the coordination of the project that it's implementing the Belém Statement. The project is called All Atlantic Cooperation for Ocean Research and Innovation, Anchor, because really the idea is that we developed activities that can anchor the collaboration in the transatlantic. So the first thing, as you see here in this slide, and this will be, I will call your attention to the presentation, is that at the Anchor project, we are not really communicating a project. We are communicating political dialogue, a political framework that it's based on 2 statements and 2 political agreements, cooperation agreements. So the 2 statements are the Galway Statement that promotes collaboration in ocean and innovation issues in the North Atlantic, and it was signed in 2013 between the EU, Canada, and the US. The other statement is a Belém Statement that was signed in 2017 here in Portugal at Belém. And it was signed between the EU, Brazil, and South Africa, and promotes the collaboration in the whole Atlantic with a special focus in the South Atlantic. Then there are also agreements between the EU and Argentina, and the EU and Cape Verde that contribute to this alliance, All Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance, that is being promoted. So one of the things that we have been asked to develop was the logo of the alliance, not the project. So we came across with this, with this logo that it's really tries to pass a message that is we are here to building an all-Atlantic ocean community and here to implement a political framework. So all our communication will be based on this framework. So, as you know, the ocean is of crucial importance as it is a home to rich biodiversity, acts as climate regulator, and offers food security. However, due to an expanding global economy, the ocean is under incredible pressure. The need for a sustained use of its resources is widely acknowledged, as well as the need for a healthy and active collaboration to better understand our ocean, to best unlock its secrets, and to sustainably manage the ocean as a whole. Cooperation in ocean research and innovation is key. Cooperation is needed at both national and international level. However, more than cooperation, I think that we need to coordinate the cooperation that is already there. So there are a huge number of initiatives in the Atlantic, and we really need is to not only to keep promoting this cooperation, but also to coordinate what is already there. So I would say that where there is a will, there is a way, and that the Anchor project, together with this alliance, we are trying to find the way to implement the will. So the project it's a H2020 project. It started in October 2018, and it should end in September 2022. It involves 17 institutions from 3 continents. So in Europe, we have Portugal, Spain, France, Belgium, and Germany, South Africa, and Cape Verde in the South African continent, the African continent, and then in South America, we have Brazilian and Argentinian institutions. As I explained, the aim of this project has a policy context, and it is to support the framework established by the Blank Statement, really to create and promote this All-Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance that is based on political agreements. So what do we need to strengthen the collaborative effort in the ocean? We need to promote dialogue. Most important, we need to create synergies, because as I said, there are a huge number of initiatives out there. Build on existing structures, initiatives, knowledge, and information. But of course, we cannot really implement this if we do not do it jointly. So coordinated collaboration is really key, north, south, east, and west of the Atlantic. There are, as I mentioned, several existing cooperative research and innovation activities. This is just a few of them. There are many, many more out there. So what we need to do is to glue them. There are also some dialogue platforms. We have been heard about the Air Center. There is also the Benguela Current Commission, Copernicus, a EU program. So we should also use these dialogue platforms in order to promote the long-term collaboration that is being also developed under the Alliance. The second thing the project has been asked to develop was a portal. Again, not promoting the project, but promoting the Alliance. So the Anchor project, it's really an Alliance portal. You have here the link for the portal. It is brand new, and it's still being completed and developed with contents. But the main feature is that it should be a one-stop shop for the Atlantic research and innovation. So one of the aims of this, or one of the main objectives of this portal at the moment, is get together in a single place all relevant initiatives that are contributing to transatlantic cooperation in ocean issues. Of course, the Air Center will be there. So, as I also mentioned, the project aims to build an Atlantic identity. So the message is really to promote the Alliance. It's to collectively communicate an Atlantic identity. In order the community, especially society, identifies with the Atlantic and have an action in order to conserve it and promote its research and innovation. There is a strong commitment in order to communicate to citizens, especially to the youngsters, because the youngsters will be tomorrow's professionals, tomorrow's political decisions. So it is very important that we communicate very strongly to the youngsters. One pilot activity that the Alliance is being implementing, both with the support of Anchor and with the support of the Aurora, that is the coordination and support action implementing the Galway Statement, so the sister coordination and support action of Anchor. It's a pilot action involving ambassadors, young ambassadors for the Atlantic. And it is expected that these ambassadors are crucial in the communication with our youngsters. Another aim of the communication is really to showcase how the Alliance is contributing to bring the benefits to the Atlantic society. So when we will participate in events, we will really not see what is Anchor doing, but what are the other projects, including Anchor, developing in order to bring these benefits to the society. By other projects, I mean all the other projects that have been funded with an Atlantic scope, and also relevant initiatives. We will create synergies with several relevant initiatives that will be in our portal. Just to call your attention, there will be the second All-Atlantic Ocean Forum. It will be on the 3rd and the 4th of February, so we already have the dates, and it will take place in Brussels. All of you are invited to attend this event, which will be the second key event for the Alliance, and really promoting the collaboration among the ocean research and innovation stakeholders. Oh, I'm still at the beginning, so I need to hurry up. So the project really, as I said, aims to build an all-Atlantic ocean community. It will develop productive dialogue platforms for the Atlantic, will identify concrete long-term transatlantic collaborative activities, building on what is already there, support the implementation of selected activities, partnering and creating synergies with other transatlantic initiatives, and find ways for long-term sustainability. So you might be asking, why or how is the Air Center related to all of these efforts? So I would say that the Air Center has an initiative promoting the dialogue in Atlantic Ocean issues with a focus in the South Atlantic that can contribute to the implementation of joint activities in the Atlantic Ocean with strong impacts to society. So the Air Center can really play a role as a dialogue platform for the long-term sustainability of the dialogue that is being promoted in scope of Anchor. In addition, the value of the Air Center is to bring to the stakeholder platforms that Anchor is developing information of the societal needs and also their network, because there is a huge network behind the Air Center, and this network will be crucial for the implementation of impactful joint actions. So I will not go through this slide because I will not have time, but basically we are developing a multi-stakeholder platform that will not work on scientific thematic areas, but really on cross-cutting cooperation means, capacity building, knowledge transfer, common standards, ocean citizen awareness and literacy, and the alignment of research infrastructure. The project will have some seed funding to support actions, and will also support this action by drafting implementation plans. In order to guide the platforms in a successful work, the project has been defining key performance indicators. Here you have two of these key performance indicators. Really, they should show how the Alliance is benefiting this transatlantic cooperation. Regarding synergies with other projects, and here I'm only mentioning EU-funded projects, there is, of course, AURA, the Coordination and Support Action for the North Atlantic, Atlas Atlantis Sponges, and the three new funded projects under the Galway Statement. There are iAtlantic, Aquavitae, and Triatlas. But two of them focus on ecosystem approaches, and the third one, Aquavitae, focus on aquaculture value chains. So I will not go through this last slide. There are the main expected results of the project, because I have briefly mentioned all of these in the presentation, and I don't have time now, I think. So I just want to say and close this thanking you and ask you to stay tuned, link to our newsletter and to our social networks, because really we would like to be the one-stop shop for the Atlantic. So every relevant information for Atlantic research and innovation should be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. We will go through the presentations, and then we will have a discussion in the end. The next presentation will be by Nick. Nick is from the Satellite Applications Catapult in the UK.
Bom dia and obrigado. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak in this centre. As you may know, the UK has been observing activity in the Air Centre for 2 years or 2 or 3 years. But I have my fingers crossed because I hope that next Thursday the ministers of the UK and Portugal and maybe some other countries will sign an agreement to make the UK a full member of the Air Centre, for which I'm delighted. I've been to 2 or 3 of the Air Centre international meetings, and I find them most exciting events to be part of. So what I'd just like to present here in a few slides is a view of the UK. It's not yet the formal view of the UK, but it's my personal feelings for what we may add to the Air Centre and how we can work together in partnership. And I'm taking this really away from the science or alongside the science towards the businesses, because I think it's important that the Air Centre adds something to the excellent scientific partnerships and scientific networks that already exist around the Atlantic. We don't want to just do more of that, but perhaps to look at the impact of that science, look at how it can develop business ecosystems, develop small businesses in those nations around the Atlantic that we see, as well as in Europe. So I just work out how to do this. So I'm going to think about, well, how can Air Centre create wealth and jobs around the Atlantic communities? I'll look at that by taking a parallel, which is the organisation that I work for in the UK, which is called a catapult, and just describe briefly what that does. And maybe we can see that there are parallels, and if the Air Centre tries to work in the same sort of approach, it can really bring benefits quite quickly to the various communities. So what I hope, I come from a space satellite background, and as we've heard, if a number of you were in the sessions earlier this morning, you see that the great synergies between the use of satellites gathering information and data about the oceans, particularly the Atlantic, and the science and the marine activities in the Atlantic itself. And what I believe the Air Centre can do is bridge that gap, join together those science communities and the business communities, both between the space and the non-space organizations, helping the space sector engage with the marine and maritime markets. By marine, I'm thinking about the science, the actual oceans itself, and by maritime, the human influence on that, what the humans are doing, what mankind is doing in an ocean environment. And we'll bring together the 3 things that satellites can do, apart from exploring the universe. Satellites do 3 things for us here. They broadly do satellite navigation that we're all very familiar with, satellite communications that we heard was so important this morning in bringing the data from below the ocean, on the surface of the ocean, back to Lisbon and to London. And of course, the Earth observation itself, those data about the ocean surface. And I'll use phrases like the blue economy. So again, we're moving away from the generation of science and data and beginning to think about man's impact, man's use of the oceans, and the various things that we do, and the money associated with that, the way that businesses can actually develop, businesses can make revenues and employ people and create economies in their own countries. So the opportunity then is for the blue economy, the ocean science, to work together with the space sector in these applications. And we'll see a little bit about what I mean by that. So in Portugal recently, you've implemented a series of collabs. One of them specifically is the Atlantic collab, looking at the same opportunities that we're thinking about today. And in the UK, we have catapults, which are very, very similar. And we sit between the research community and the business community, helping that innovation, helping bridge that gap, both in terms of funding innovations that is beyond fundamental science, but not really very close to market, those areas that are quite difficult to get funding for, enabling the commercialization of the science to create services for the rest of us to develop. And these are investments for the long term. This doesn't happen very quickly. So investments into this part of that innovation system is something for maybe decades away. You put money in now, and in 5 to 10 years' time, businesses start to make money and employ people. And it's important that that system of networking, of developing this innovation, is done in a not-for-profit way. You don't want to take the money too early on out of the system. You want to leave the money in the system and help develop that innovative capacity. So looking at where we're trying to go with this is just looking in terms of Europe at the size of the various markets that we have. So these are real markets where people are spending money using the ocean. And so tourism comes out extremely high. I don't know if you can see the numbers there, but it's something like 15, I think these are millions of euro per annum, 51 million euros per annum associated with coastal and marine tourism. And then you see the other numbers for the various ways in which we use these services. And if we look at those characteristics, again, this is actually from a consumer point of view of people trying to sell satellite navigation services. So these are from people using the Galileo satellites from Europe and the other sat-nav satellites, selling products to us. We're used to these, whether it's a Garmin or a TomTom in our car. But when they start to look at the maritime environment, it's a retail market, people buying little navigation things for their yachts and cruising vessels. And you see also, obviously, the amount of traffic going on in the sort of commercial environment. But if you look at the recreational vessels, you see that it's far more than it is in the commercial area. And so, again, when we think about the Atlantic Collab and the Air Centre, what we want to think about is not just science, not just business, but actual real people, consumers. How can we engage those? What sort of services do ordinary people want to do with the ocean? And of course, much of that will be in the coastal areas, whether it's smart ports and harbours or just recreational use around the coast. And of course, what I need to do from my perspective is to look at, well, how does that fit with other satellite services? And if we look down the list of the sort of maritime drivers, all the various things that go on in our use of the oceans, and then look across at the things satellites can do, we see a lot of ticks. Satellites are actually very useful in all those different areas. There are only really a few gaps. It's right across everywhere. And this means that there is terrific opportunity for businesses, companies in Portugal, in the UK, and in the other partners of the Air Centre to develop new products and services. And for those of you who were here yesterday and in the space section, there was a lot of mutual understanding between the various speakers about the opportunities that are emerging now in Earth observation as we approach this top right-hand picture, the top right-hand corner of the diagram there, where we're getting higher and higher spatial resolution and higher temporal resolution in terms of getting all sorts of satellite data which can inform our services here on the Earth. We've looked at these opportunities in the UK, and these are the sort of areas where we believe are the first ones which will be able to be commercialized, and the first ones that perhaps the Air Centre should start to focus on. And we're so essentially it's about maritime situational awareness. It's about giving information, taking data, analyzing it, adding it to models, and creating information which people can use. And the way that we discover what these opportunities are in the UK is that we hold small meetings with fewer people than this sitting in a small room with experts in a particular market. So maybe it will be experts from port authorities, and we'll get them to talk about their day-to-day work and their day-to-day problems and try to understand from them, well, how could satellites help that? If you used satellites, how would this help you with your day-to-day work? And as an example of this, of course, we work across all sorts of markets, not just ocean markets. And we had a set of people in. We had 6 people who are the directors and managers of nuclear power stations in the UK. We have a few nuclear power stations. And we had these people in because we felt that they have a very important job, often to do with safety and security as well as energy production, and that there may be opportunities for companies with satellites to be able to help them. And we had a very interesting conversation with these nuclear scientists and nuclear managers. And after about 1 hour or so of sitting around, one of them said, this is very, it's very interesting, but can you see jellyfish from space? And we said, well, I don't know, maybe, but what's that got to do with nuclear power stations? He said, well, we had to shut down a nuclear power station on the coast of northern England 2 or 3 months ago because a shoal of jellyfish got caught in the cooling waters. So we take our cooling waters from the North Sea, and this jellyfish blocked up the input. That meant we couldn't cool the nuclear power station, so we had to shut everything down. Cost us £5 million. if we'd known those jellyfish were there, maybe we wouldn't have had to have shut it down. If you can you see them from space? So we said, well, that's very interesting. Maybe we can. But was this just a one-off? Did this just happen once, or is it a regular thing? Oh no, it happens all the time. He said it's all over the world. We have colleagues with power stations in South America, in Chile. They had to shut them down as well. And it's not just jellyfish. You get all sorts of fish. Oh gosh, because now we're seeing this isn't just a scientific question. Can you see jellyfish from space? But actually, there's a market here. Maybe a small company can produce forecasting to see whether these things come together. So we had a look to see whether we could see jellyfish from space, and we found one image taken on the very day that they had to shut down this nuclear power station over the UK. And the UK is mostly cloudy, I have to say. It's very sad. It's not as nice as it is here. It's mostly cloudy. But there was a gap in the clouds on that very day that this satellite happened to fly over and take a picture. It just showed the nuclear power station in the sea. But we then had our clever experts process the hell out of this picture. And what we see out there's the nuclear power station in the bottom, and there at the top is a signature of these jellyfish. And you can see that they're being pulled in to the inlet valve of the nuclear power station. So the answer was, yes, you can see jellyfish from space. And now there are a small company in the north of England who are actually putting a process together to see whether this can be made operational. Can we predict this sort of thing all around the world? And this is exactly what I see the Air Centre should be able to do, is to bring these communities together. Unexpected questions that you really wouldn't expect can develop and turn out into new opportunities. So that was really where I wanted to finish, that I just see the Air Centre as being able to take the scientists. So we're working with scientists from various laboratories to try to develop these ecosystems, these systems. So looking ahead then, I really see the Air Centre as a great opportunity to innovate and to disrupt things. We want to change the way things are working, building on these existing collaborations, but more importantly, creating new partnerships using science, satellites, and the in-situ data, autonomous vehicles, as we've heard about this morning, and robotics, doing the great research, or at least using the great research, but meeting these market needs, creating jobs, wealth around in Portugal, in Africa, in South America, and all over. I'll leave it there. I hope we can do it. I look forward to it. I'm very excited. Obrigado.
We now move to Joaquim Brito, the CEO of the Air Centre.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think that after the previous presentation, part of my job have been done, because there is nothing like an example in order to illustrate the idea. So I just going just to do a small introduction of where we came and where we are going. Sophia has shown before the large amount of projects and activities that are going on through the Atlantic. In here, I'm showing just some of the initiatives, and as you see, there's a lot of fragmentation. There's a lot of initiative going on, also in the different disciplines. Some part of the projects are just focusing on biology or on physics, and the mission-orientated approach haven't been done too much. I mean, what we need now is go in the direction that Nick have shown in terms of finding solutions to the real problem. We arrived to that. So just in order to say that in the Atlantic already a lot of activity has been going on in order to try to have a common ground, to have a collaboration. We think that is very easy, but later on it's not so easy. It's not so easy to match together, for example, European programs with NSF programs in the States, or join us with the programs that are in Canada and in Brazil. So a lot of work has been done from the Atlantic Statement from 2013 in order to have a common agreement between European Union, Canada, and USA, and then later on with the Belém Statement with Brazil and with South Africa. And indeed, in parallel to this process, we have been also tried to have high dialogue levels between, especially involving industry together with academia and to the government in order to understand these, how to proceed with these partnerships, taking into account that the different governments, we have different ways of cooperation. I have to congratulate Antonio Sarmento because he has been the one designing most of these dialogues, and especially also the Minister of Manuel Echor that also has been working in behind together with other countries. So all of these process that started in Galway, that then later on went to Belém Statement. So we from the Earth Center, we try to provide a platform in which all of these activities could find a way to have a permanent space to be developed. Not just the platform, just one of them. I mean, there's many opportunities, and there's going to be many opportunities, but we have to think in the next years, not only in the base of projects, that is something that they start, have a concrete deliverables and an end, but we have to create joint platforms in where the people can find each other, can discuss in the way that Nika has shown in concrete problems that we have. And over that, try to build solutions that sometimes require shared added value chains, where perhaps part of the value is in UK, part of the value is in Brazil, another part of the value is, but if we join all of these elements together, we can provide a solution that is useful for the citizen, and this tackling the global problems that we have to face in the Atlantic. So that is the concept. Sometimes these intangible concepts that require collaboration is much harder to implement. If you have to buy a machine, it's easy. You buy the machine and that's all. But if you have to put people from different countries to work together with different legislations in order to solve problems from different communities, sometimes it requires trust, required an exercise of work and energy. So the Air Center is trying to contribute on that effort. So the areas that we are working, of course, is in everything related with the ocean, from the space to the deep ocean, including resources, energy, and so on. But we are going to be driven by the SDG goals. So we think also from us, the SDG goals are like this goal that you have to find at 2030, and I think that the Atlantic community have to be much more working together, engaged in solving these problems. So we need to share technology, but also we need to share the knowledge of the people in the different institutions. So that is why we try to connect the countries, but also to connect the institutions in order that jointly they can provide the necessary knowledge and the necessary technology to solve concrete areas. So the added value of this community, I think that is quite important, because in this community you can find the necessary biodiversity, you can find also the problems where the different societies are claiming for results, and also we have to find ways in which we can support these and implement these problems. So also we can find ways in which through these platforms we can attract international investment, also investment for the industry. That is something that is quite important for us. We also like to use the outermost regions and islands as an observatory. So during these days you have seen that there is activities that are happening in Azores, or are going to happen in also in other islands through the Atlantic. So for us, the islands are like small living labs, but also coastal areas in which we like to develop ecosystem, innovation ecosystems that could retain talent there, but also could help and to work with the local investors and local entrepreneurs to develop solutions. Maybe not all the value chain will be in that place, but part of it will be fixed there, working together in networks. So I think that the institutions that are already involved are large. We have to do much more work in order that these institutions could develop joint actions, joint projects, focus with this mission-orientated. I think that both what is happening in UK and what is happening in Europe in relation with, in UK, for example, they are developing quite fast an industrial strategy based on mission-orientated, and also in Europe we are working on that way. So I think that that is going to help a lot, because this is coming in the same direction that we are developing the Air Center platform, and providing also the way to collaborate with African and South American countries. So we already have a portfolio of projects. It's just a first sanity check. We are still starting. We are still, we have to learn a lot from the different partners and members. For us, it's quite important this partnership for do some kind of co-creation with the different communities and different countries. I think that we have to learn with a lot of care what has been said here today, especially the approach that Nick has shown, and also that the opportunity that I have to talk previously with Mauricio in relation to focus the activity to provide added value to the innovation. That's, I think that this is important. We need that translate the knowledge and technology in real solutions and improvement of the well-being. The activity on the space will be very important. It's going to be connected with all of activities related with blue growth. I'm not going to be in much more detail. Just one thing that I would like to add is that most of the observation from the satellites has been until now concentrated just in the north hemisphere. So we have to find solutions and business model in order to do that also in the South Atlantic, helping not only to understand better the biodiversity and helping to provide to look at how to improve the care, the stewardship of the ecosystem, the ecosystem values that are also there. At the end, what is important is the whole ecosystem. We live in one single planet, and we have to take care of all that together. But we have to find the business model in order to look at it. And through the satellites, I think that especially low-altitude satellites in the near future, I think that we have to find ways. So we are working together with ESA in relation with ESA Lab, but I think that this is going to be very relevant, the contribution that from UK and from other countries we can get from that in issues like healthy oceans, the plastics, all the debris is an important matter that we have to develop in the next future. All the things related with technologies in spectral, hyperspectral imaging is also great to solve problems like, for example, in Nigeria or in Angola, in related with floods or in related with local erosion, coastal erosion. There's big problems there that we have to solve. I think that we are also promoting an Atlantic GEOS that is part of our issue with the data, inundation, I have said, and also the plastics. I don't like to go in much more detail because I know that the time is running. The biodiversity is one important thing that we have to look at using especially satellite technologies and complementing in situ sampling. And already we have agreements with MBON and Blue Planet in order to do that and to use traditional technologies with new technologies derived from the satellites. Finally, I just like to say that it's going to be a long journey. I mean, just bringing the people together through the Atlantic is not an easy task. It's not a task for a decade. It's a task for a longer period. But we have to go step by step, generating trust and working together, producing concrete projects that will demonstrate the results of the benefits, the value proposition, and also learning from the mistakes. I am sure that we are going to do mistakes, but we are going to learn from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joaquin. We now move to our last presenter, Mauricio Guedes from FAPES, Brazil.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the invitation to be here. I've been seeing fantastic presentations during the last days, but most of them are focused on the science point of view. So I want to thank Nick for his presentation, because he made a kind of an introduction for my approach. I want to say something from the economic point of view. I want to thank also the chairman and Nick that they allowed me to speak in Portuguese. It's a great experience for a Brazilian to be in Portugal speaking Portuguese. So I'll change to Portuguese, and I think Joaquim will translate to Nick. Se vocês não entenderem o meu mau português, por favor, peçam para eu voltar para o inglês. Come on. Oil Production, parece que esse é o título errado para essa apresentação. Nós estamos falando aqui o tempo todo de futuro, e venho eu falar de uma indústria do passado. O Brasil, vou ter 2 slides sobre a situação do Brasil na área da ciência e tecnologia, e depois entrar um pouquinho na história brasileira, na presença brasileira na indústria do petróleo. O Brasil é a linha verde. Esse gráfico tem os investimentos em pesquisa e desenvolvimento comparados com o PIB. A posição brasileira é parecida com a posição de Portugal. Nós investimos hoje 1,2% do produto interno bruto em pesquisa, sendo que o investimento das empresas é muito baixo comparado com o investimento do governo. Na verdade, no Brasil é meio a meio, 0,6% do governo e 0,6% das empresas. E o mecanismo que eu vou descrever a seguir sobre o sistema criativo de financiamento da pesquisa na indústria do petróleo tem a ver com isso, com a criação de um incentivo, na verdade, uma obrigação para que a indústria faça investimentos em pesquisa e desenvolvimento. O Brasil, todos sabemos, é um país com muita instabilidade sobre vários aspectos, sobre o aspecto político, inclusive. Eu acho que os dias de hoje mostram de maneira bastante clara isso, e também a imperfeição da democracia, que foi aqui mencionada no primeiro dia pelo professor Quintanilha. Mas uma das poucas políticas públicas de Estado no Brasil que tem sido continuada ao longo de décadas é a formação de mestres e doutores. No Brasil, hoje, nós formamos 20 mil mestres por ano, 50 mil mestres por ano e mais de 20 mil doutores por ano. Então, apesar de todas as crises políticas e econômicas, a gente percebe que essa curva é uma curva crescente ao longo de décadas, e vamos ver daqui para frente, espero que continue assim. Esse gráfico apresenta... Opa! Deve ter um pointer aqui. Apresenta 4 informações, todas elas começam no índice 100 em 1998. A primeira linha é a população brasileira. A população brasileira, entre 98 e, nesse caso, 2015, ela cresceu 22%. Se era 100, passou para 122. O produto interno bruto, se era 100, passou para 153. Tivemos um crescimento significativo, não nos últimos anos, certamente, mas e um crescimento do PIB per capita também significativo, principalmente durante alguns períodos. O número de mestres formados no país por ano, se era 100 em 98, passou para 483, e o número de doutores passou para 526. Então, foi um avanço muito grande na formação de mestres e doutores. Mas a estrutura econômica do país e talvez a velocidade com que esse aumento aconteceu fizeram com que esses doutores e esses pesquisadores não fossem absorvidos pela atividade econômica, pelas empresas. Esse é um problema enfrentado em vários países, né? No Brasil, nós temos essa situação da precariedade do trabalho de jovens doutores, né, que terminam recebendo bolsas. Eu esqueci de mencionar no início, a FAPERJ, a agência onde eu atualmente trabalho como diretor de tecnologia, é uma agência de fomento à ciência, tecnologia e inovação vinculada ao governo do Estado do Rio de Janeiro. Então, uma das coisas que a FAPERJ dá é bolsas de mestrado, bolsas de doutorado e bolsas de pós-doutorado, né? Então, tem pessoas que ficam bolsistas pós-doc durante vários anos. Não é a situação ideal e, às vezes, não é a situação razoável, mas é uma solução que se encontra para um problema da vida real. O que a indústria do petróleo tem a ver com ciência, tecnologia, pesquisa, futuro, satélites, etc.? Tem muito a ver. O Brasil tem hoje pouco mais de 7 mil poços de petróleo. O Brasil é um grande produtor de petróleo, produzimos 2,6 milhões de barris por dia, em média, atualmente. Desses poços de petróleo, 650 são no oceano e 6 mil e poucos são em terra. Mas esses 650 poços no oceano são responsáveis por 96% da produção brasileira de petróleo. Então, foi uma grande conquista tecnológica e ligada ao Oceano Atlântico, né? O caminho rumo ao fundo do mar, né? Alguns dizem que o passo mais importante foi esse aqui. Foi quando, em 1977, a Petrobras, que só produzia até então petróleo em terra, se jogou no mar. Foi um desafio enorme, não se sabia o que aconteceria com aquelas plataformas que, numa lâmina d'água de 124 metros, significava um prédio de 40 andares. As plataformas eram torres, tinham pés que se apoiavam no fundo do oceano. Ainda assim, havia dúvidas enormes sobre o que aconteceria com essa estrutura submetida às correntes marítimas, às correntes térmicas, o esforço mecânico das correntes marítimas. Então, desde aí, aliás, anos antes, começou um trabalho muito grande de cooperação da universidade com universidades brasileiras para desenvolvimento de tecnologia. Aqui a gente vê o Cristo Redentor, no Rio de Janeiro, tem 700 metros de altura, e a Petrobras, isso foi um recorde mundial, hoje nós estamos a mais de 2.000 metros de profundidade produzindo petróleo. É uma estrutura extremamente complexa, né? Esse é o formato que muitas plataformas têm hoje, e tem toda uma estrutura submarina de grande complexidade para a produção de petróleo. Em 2007, vocês devem ter ouvido, houve uma descoberta de uma enorme reserva de petróleo no Brasil, no pré-sal. Isso é um corte do fundo do Oceano Atlântico, né? Para chegar até o petróleo, tem que ser vencido uma camada de 2.000 metros de água, depois mais 1.000 metros de chamado pós-sal. O pré-sal fica depois do pós-sal. A contagem é de dentro para fora, né? Depois tem uma enorme camada de sal, de 2.000 metros, e aqui está o pré-sal. Então, esse é um desafio altamente complexo do ponto de vista científico, tecnológico, e um desafio internacional que existe também em algumas outras regiões do país. O modelo, estou chegando ao final, o modelo inteligente que foi criado para financiamento dessas pesquisas, como a produção de petróleo é uma concessão do Estado para uma empresa, durante muito tempo foi um monopólio da Petrobras, mas hoje tem mais de 20 empresas produzindo petróleo no Brasil, inclusive a Galp, por exemplo, e todos os contratos de concessão trazem a obrigação de que a empresa faça um investimento de pelo menos 1% do seu faturamento em pesquisa e desenvolvimento, e que metade desse valor deve ser investido em cooperação com universidades brasileiras. Isso tem gerado esses volumes de recursos que aparecem aí, eles estão em reais, mas o último ano tem informação em dólar, no ano passado foram 500 milhões de dólares, e como a produção do petróleo no Brasil é crescente agora, né, o pré-sal está entrando em produção, já é responsável por 60% da produção brasileira, nós vamos ter muitos recursos para pesquisa e desenvolvimento vindos das empresas de petróleo. Não é um recurso governamental. Quem decide sobre a aplicação desses recursos são as empresas e cabe ao governo apenas fiscalizar a correta aplicação desses recursos para pesquisa, desenvolvimento e inovação. Eu sou um desses que acredita muito na força das redes. A Petrobras, esse é um dado só da Petrobras, não do conjunto das empresas, criou uma rede com mais de 140 universidades brasileiras. Além disso, ela coopera com muitas universidades estrangeiras também, mas não utilizando esses recursos da obrigação. E mais de 800 laboratórios de pesquisa fazem parte desse esforço. Finalizando, eu tive a satisfação de dirigir esse projeto durante 20 anos, a criação também de uma experiência de formação de uma rede muito forte, um parque tecnológico na Universidade Federal do Rio de Janeiro, onde nós temos 69 empresas hoje instaladas, entre cerca de 30 startups, uma dúzia de grandes players internacionais. Dentro do campus da Universidade Federal do Rio de Janeiro, uma das 3 melhores universidades do país. É um parque multissetorial, mas nós temos um foco, uma vocação muito forte para a área do petróleo. Um dos laboratórios instalados no parque é o Laboratório de Tecnologia Oceânica, um grande centro onde se faz simulação da operação de modelos reduzidos de plataformas, com sistema de geração de ondas, geração de correnteza e geração de vento, né? Uma plataforma dessas custa bilhões de dólares. Então, além de toda a modelagem matemática, a prática no mundo inteiro é que, antes de ser produzida, ela é submetida em modelo reduzido a um ensaio num tanque desse tipo. Essas são as empresas que estão no parque hoje, e se eu destacar as grandes empresas, vocês vão reconhecer algumas marcas aí. Percebam que não é só da indústria do petróleo, tem a L'Oréal, tem a Ambev, cerveja, todas com centros de pesquisa, não são unidades de produção, são centros de pesquisa. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much, Mauricio. Well, we have now half an hour or 25 minutes for discussion. And I would maybe prefer if someone from the audience has questions, please do it. Otherwise, I will start discussion here, but I think it is better if you pose the questions. You may either speak in Portuguese or in English. So, who is the first brave person to ask difficult questions for our members of the panel?
If you don't have questions, we'll be here until
you lose your lunch. Yes. Well, so I will break the ice maybe. I think the presentations were very interesting in the sense of understanding that there is a lot of effort for cooperation, but that these efforts are not exactly the same. But nevertheless, it is to some extent still unclear how these different efforts can, in a way, cooperate, but at the same time differentiate one from the others. There was, on one hand, Joaquin mentioned the fact that in most cases the cooperation is done under projects, and any project has a lifetime, a start date, an end date, and the consortium that is developed for that particular project may be lost in the future. And so the need for a long-term platform for this cooperation, and that is an organization. So the Earth Center has this role. And Nick also mentioned, and also Mauricio, the fact that most of the cooperation that is done and that has been identified here associated with projects are mainly research projects. Anchor, Sophia mentioned, has also this, it's not so much about research, It's focused on research and knowledge-driven, but aims also in developing the roots for a cooperation to stand after the project, even if it is not clear how that will be done. So in that sense, we see some differentiation. Maybe the question, if I understood well what you said, and that's also of course, my understanding for being involved in this process over more than 1 year. So I hope that this message has been clear also to you. The question that can be asked is, what are the challenges in putting this on? Because, of course, there are many interests involved. In a way, there are the interests from the scientists, which, of course, tend to put more pressure on the scientific aspect, on the knowledge-driven. There is interest from institutions like the Catapult or WAVEC and many others, which are more on connecting the knowledge with the economic world, so more related to innovation and exploitation of this innovation into something that is interesting for the populations because it solves the problems that the population have, and also interesting for the companies because it provides opportunities for the companies. And then we have all the political level issues which are related to the particular interests for the different countries in assuming or defining and defending and implementing their own strategies. So there are, in that sense, a lot of challenges, and maybe you would ask the panel to comment on what are the challenges and how do they feel that these challenges may be overcome, how long it will take, what type of resources it will take. So maybe starting with Joaquin.
Okay, so I think that providing a platform, you have to have also some kind of agnostic behavior. You know, this is the way that we did, for example, when we started to develop in the Canaries our test site. So at the very beginning, we thought, okay, this is the industry that is going to be much more interested. But later on, we learned that we were wrong, that the other kind of industry, other kind of people came. So what we try is just to provide the platform and then try to decide that the stakeholders, the groups that are really interested in use this tool could show us what is much more relevant. So in this way, we are going to be open for helping researchers to connect with international projects and to develop international consortiums. But also at the same time, if we have the opportunity and if there are people interested in doing technology transfer or detecting opportunities for concrete developments, I think that is the ultimate game. And is the way in which the technology can really be applied and produce value for the well-being. And as I have said before, my personal belief is that in the next years there is going to be a lot of pressure from different countries and from even from the European Commission, UK, and so on. And Mauricio also has said from Brazil, to produce tangible things, to produce economical activity, and to get the value from the sea. In terms of harnessing resources or to look at new technological developments and so on. So if we can help on that, that will be wonderful, but will be the users, the associated partners, will be the stakeholders, the ones that really are going to decide what is and how we are going to evolve.
Thank you. I'll pick up on a slightly different point, which we've touched upon, answering your question, but touching upon something that we mentioned earlier, and that's the international context, specifically looking at the Sustainable Development Goals and international development around nations that are less well off than ourselves in Europe. And again, I'd like to pick up, for those of you who were here in the earlier talks this morning, looking back historically 500 years to the times of Magellan, and in the UK we had our famous King Henry VIII with a rather different perspective on the world. But that shared history that we have has created all sorts of partnerships, and in fact Brazil and Portugal arise from those sorts of periods. And in the UK, we now have very positive and constructive relationships with many countries in Africa that in those days, the relationship was rather different. But I see a challenge and an opportunity for the Air Centre is, the opportunity is to bring in those sorts of relationships, to use the Air Centre to develop relationships with other countries around the Atlantic boundaries, with the poorer countries, looking at those sustainable development goals and using the techniques and technologies that we have here to help those countries develop and create wealth and jobs and creativity in those countries. So my organization is measured at the end of the day on the number of jobs that I can create in UK companies, and collabs in Portugal are measured on creation of jobs in Portugal. But to create those jobs, we need to work internationally and in parallel create jobs, more importantly, I think, in these other countries, developing countries around the world. And I think that will be a challenge and an opportunity for the Air Centre, actually, that nobody else is looking at in quite that same way. And then, of course, an obvious challenge is, well, where do we get the funding to do everything that we've talked about? But rather than looking at the traditional ways of getting project funding from the European Commission for science projects, perhaps we should look at the more international development projects. There are very, very large budgets where countries are mandated by UN mandates to invest in creation of development and capacity building in other countries. And maybe we can use that with a good sustainable development goal as well as the local goals of our own countries here. That's just a thought.
Regarding the issue of promoting a long-term sustainability for this dialogue and these all the activities that is being built in the Atlantic, at the Alliance, we believe that we really need to create a sense of identity. Because if we don't create this sense of identity, it seems that we are not going together to reach a specific challenge. So one of the things is really creating a concrete identity for the Atlantic that involves the community. So another aspect is really that we have to involve the whole community. But in order to do this, we have to speak not only the same language. We use English as our main language, although in the South Atlantic we could use Spanish or Portuguese. But we should also speak using the same terminology. This is sometimes the same terms in the different languages are understood in a different way. So in order we are able to develop this long-term collaboration, we really need to work together, understand what each other is saying, and also understand the different cultures. So one of the things that it's really important also to create this identity and this common vision to work together, it's glue what is already there. So there is a huge number of initiatives, and we need to, together with this identity, try to bring them all in the same table, having the same challenges in order to have a long-term collaboration. Final, in order to promote this Atlantic identity that could help us, we have to speak to our youngsters. Because, as I said, they will be tomorrow's professionals. They will be tomorrow's decision makers. So it's really important that we communicate them and to involve them in this Atlantic message in order we can promote these synergies and have a long-term collaboration.
Well, I think the Air Centre is a great initiative, and of course it brings fantastic opportunities for research in science. The ocean is a global issue and brings also some imagination, fascination for people to be focused on ocean-related matters. Yesterday, I've been in a session about the need of Europe to enhance the innovation capacity of the countries. It's the same problem that you have in Brazil. Brazil is number 13 in publishing scientific papers, and in the ranking of innovation, we are 65, maybe a little bit more. So we need to make use of every opportunity that we have to use the research results in order to create jobs, to create wealth. It's not a matter of doing less basic research. It's the opposite. It's to create structures, and I think the center can be helpful in that. So we can make use of research results to create jobs, to create wealth. Each one of us, we had a very short time, but to be possible to produce oil, for instance, in 2,000 meters in the ocean, you need a lot of mathematics, you need supercomputing, you need new materials, you need oceanography, you need satellites, you need a lot of research in different areas. So I think we have a big opportunity with this initiative. By the way, Sarmiento, I want to thank you for your effort making it possible during several years, and I'm not sure that you've been informed that on August 9 will be officially open the Air Center office in Rio de Janeiro, and Minister Manuel Heitor will be there.
Well, let's go back to the audience and see that if there is anyone there. Can we have a microphone? Is there anyone? Ah, okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for all your presentations. It was illuminating. I just have a quick question. I don't know whether it's going to be a short answer. But the Atlantic, as we know, it is a very geostrategic place to be. It's huge. But even for military and defense perspectives, it's a very interesting place. So all these platforms, which I subscribe to, when it involves research and all keywords going along with that, how do you filter, or do you filter any military defense research projects that might be willing to jump aboard or cooperate? I mean, again, all those keywords that can be wisely used in order to submit proposals. I mean, do you filter any projects or proposals coming from military and defense common interests? Because there's a lot of countries placed on the borders of the Atlantic, and therefore all of those could eventually propose or submit proposals to research in those areas. And how do you go about it? I mean, do you bypass them, or do you welcome them, or what?
You know, a platform is a place for collaboration. We are collaborating with different institutions in different countries. And the policy that we follow is that the countries are the ones that are indicating what they wish. So at the end, of course, the data that you can use could be, or the data that we can produce could be could have different uses. But what is important for us is that the countries involved, they have to take their own decisions. I mean, we are not going to impose the model of collaboration that we are going to develop is that at each country they decide or they have to take the decisions in which how they can orientate their collaboration for their own countries. So I think that we have to be very respectful on that. And also, in order to have a model, a sustainable model of collaboration, this is an essential, that we are all together, we are all collaborating with a permanent and stable platform, but in which the difficult decisions are taken by the countries in order to do what they like to do using our platform. So that is my initial approach. But of course, during the time, and also taking into account the involvement of the countries, they also have to decide much more in detail about concrete policies. What I can tell you is that the projects that are of, for example, application in private sectors, they have to keep some kind of confidentiality because, of course, that is involving innovation, is involving applications and technologies that could have to be under confidential issues.
Just to comment very briefly, yeah, I fully agree. I think the Air Centre should be completely free and open data policies, these sorts of things. We're used to these, so in our various communities, I'm sure it's the same in the UK, we're used to working with the more sensitive side, especially in Earth observation. Clearly there are military interests, and we are careful to discriminate between the use of data, if you will, for peacekeeping type purposes against more military use. You may recall, of course, in the UK we had a minor incident in the Atlantic Ocean some 35 years ago, where we use the phrase the Falkland Islands. It's also known as Las Malvinas, and we had a little bit of a contretemps in the South Atlantic. But clearly, those sorts of issues, may well arise. Who knows what's going to happen in the future with different pressures on resources. But the Air Centre, can sit well above that. Our data will be open. It will be used by all sorts of people. But it's possible to have relationships, informal relationships with these sorts of organizations where data can be shared, where we can benefit from some of the data that they have. As I say, I think the Air Centre, it's important to sit well above those sorts of political sensitivities.
If I can comment on that, I also believe two things. First, there are, of course, military objectives which are very restrict, and I'm sure they will not bring this to the Air Centre. But I think the opportunity, and I think that more and more nowadays, the opportunity exists for the dual application. So developing technologies or services that may be used for military purposes, but also for civilian purposes. And that for those type of course, projects are much more easy to integrate. I wonder if there is any other, another one? Yes, please.
Hello. It's just that, okay, in one hand the question was, how would you receive proposals from military defense strategy? But on the other side of the coin is that, of course, assuming that no one proposes anything, but then the release of information from your part, the detail of information that maybe it's needed at research level, it's fine from scientific technology terms. But if you have the detail on the ground or the detail on the sea, the amount of detail that you will release for scientific purpose might be used unwisely, in my opinion, by other groups that might want not use it for a very noble purpose. I mean, when it's talking about military operations in the Atlantic, then the release of data with fine detail or fine scale that might put under the scrutiny eyes of other players, that might be a problem. One thing is that if I mean, I'm all for the detail and open data, okay? I am subscribed to that. But I am very much aware of the problems that that might cause to the very same society we want to give more detail. Maybe we are exposing that very same society to other foreign interests of other purpose that might not be very good for that society. I can't pin down the names because by professional reasons I can't state things more clear than I'm being able to. But I hope you do understand that the more detail you give away, the more detail you are giving away to all fronts.
Well, before passing to, I understand your question, but I think that possibly the biggest danger will not come from the military, but maybe from terrorism. But I will pass to Joaquin.
Yeah. No, that is what I said before, that we are going to follow the policy of the countries. You know, there are some countries that they are not allowed to release some kind of data, or that they are only allowed to release data in certain areas, but not in others, because they have critical infrastructures, for example. And around these critical infrastructures, you don't have the data. For example, we already have been working with issues related with acoustic things that we are using for whales, but at the same time we are tracking the soundtrack of certain military vessels, for example. So this part of the information is not going to be released, but that is a usual practice. For example, in ocean observations, that is part of the game. I mean, there is certain critical information that when Royal Navy is going around, maybe you are not allowed to track their soundtrack.
Well, it's 1 o'clock, so I think that we should stop here. Mauricio, there is another question?
You have a few moments left because you started later. Okay.
Okay, good.
He have a question, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, my question is directed towards Nick, and I'm sorry if it's not totally properly constructed because I haven't had the time to formulate it properly. But I was wondering, since what Antonio touched upon, there are challenges that come from different pools, scientific, political, and the UK is aiming to become a full partner of the US Centre. How do you lead with the different pools? Because there's a big scientific pool for the collaboration between different countries, and meanwhile in the United Kingdom there's a political pool towards separating from other countries. How do you deal with that?
I wish it would go away. I am an absolute Remainer on all this. I am extremely embarrassed by the rest of my country, I should say. But that aside, I find it very hard to speak positively about anything to do with Brexit. But international collaboration will always be important. I guess, you know, if for whatever reason something happens and we do eventually leave the European Union, as has been said, I think, by colleagues in this room earlier, we may well be leaving the European Union, but we're not leaving Europe. We're not leaving the planet. Luckily, there are enough people, intelligent and well-educated people in the UK who know that the right thing to do is to work with colleagues in Europe and colleagues around the world. It's even more important if we have some politicians taking us in a particular direction, which I fully believe is absolutely a bad thing. But there we are. So we are where we are. I think UK joining organisations like this, you know, maybe actually it's because of the other things that are going on that some people are realising how important it is to make these sorts of international commitments. So yeah, well, I've said what I've said. It's very, very important for UK to work internationally with colleagues in Europe and around the world. And the other way around, yes, don't leave us alone, please. We're here, and we really want to work with you.
Thank you.
I want to say a few words as final remarks from myself. It's related to defense. And United Kingdom is the invited country for this conference, and we've been talking about the cooperation between Portugal and the United Kingdom in science and in science and technology. And the history of science in Brazil has a strong connection to this cooperation. All of you know that in 1808, the King of Portugal, with 15 people, went to Brazil because the Napoleon army was getting close to Lisbon, and they decided to move to Brazil. And on the way to Brazil, on the Atlantic, they were supported by the United Kingdom, by the British Navy. And one of the important things that Rei Dom João VI made when arrived in Brazil was the creation of the first scientific institution in Brazil, o Jardim Botânico no Rio de Janeiro. Então, nós devemos esse feito à cooperação entre Inglaterra e Portugal.
So just as also a final remark is that if we want to have long-term collaboration in ocean and research issues, we really have to build trust. And this trust building activity, it's one of the key areas of the alliance. That is, we already have a lot of trust built among the researchers. There are a lot of research projects going on and being funded through several in several ways. But what now we need is also to bring the trust, build the trust among other stakeholders. And that is the reason why we structure the Anchor project in these 5 cooperation platforms. So we are tackling not really scientific thematic areas. They are cross-cutting all these platforms, but we are really tackling the cooperation means. So the ocean literacy, what ocean literacy activities can we do? And that they really can cover all the scientific teams. What knowledge transfer activities, how can we create this trust that is needed between the scientific community and the industry? How can we create this trust needed in order to enhance observations in the ocean, bringing together different initiatives and institutions that are already doing ocean observations. So it's this way, a different way of thinking that we are trying to do and to implement in the Atlantic.
Well, just to close the session, I would like to do a very brief comment on something that I learned on one of the Air Center high-level dialogues in the Canary Islands. There was a presentation from, I think it was an American professor, but very much focused on Africa. And he gave us two information that I think shows how relevant Air Center and other organizations may be. He told me 2 things. The first is the population of Nigeria, which is now 700 and will be, I think, by 2030, 2050, 700 millions. Nigeria. And he told us an even more challenging situation. He said that by then, each of 3 of 4 young people looking for jobs in the world will be sub-Saharan. So you can imagine the pressure that this will put in the world, in particular in Europe. We are already facing the migration problem, with problems everywhere for many people. So imagine what it will be when the most of the population in the world will be in Africa and facing job difficulties. That means that we need much more, in a way, to be concerned with research, is to be concerned in solving social problems that exist in these countries, environmental problems, and creating job opportunities there. So the business development, I think it's a critical issue for everyone, including for Europe, in those regions. And I conclude here. Thank you very much for attending this session, and thank you very much for our panelists.